All right, boys. Tony Hawk 3 and 4 comes out Friday. Right? We were what, 3 days away? I got, I was used to skateboard and BMX back in the day. And I remember my godmother got me the first Tony Hawk game on PS1 for Christmas one year. And I'm curious to see what IGN's going to give it. Are they going to give it the old 7? Let's see.
The Birdman is back.
I miss.
And he's once again
miss the old
540
days.
Christ-staring his way into my house and into my heart, like some kind of majestic, motorhead-fueled messiah of manuals, methods, and Madonnas. As the follow-up to 2020's absolutely delightful remake of the first two Pro Skater games.
If you didn't play the remake during COVID, what are you doing with your life? I remember playing that. It was kind of like, it was fun, but it felt so short. Like back in the day, I would play Tony Hawk for forever, you know what I mean? That, Dave Mears Pro BMX, Matt Hoffman's Pro BMX. But like, replaying it, it felt so short. So I'm sure this probably feels this way now that, 20 some years have passed, and it just, I don't know. We'll see if they added stuff in this game. I mean, Tony Hawk's Underground would probably be a really good remake. That would be good. But, hey.
Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 may lack the outright initial novelty of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, and it definitely colours outside the lines a bit more while bringing these classics back to life, but it's also impossible for me to deny how infectiously fun it is being transported back to 2001 for some authentically old-school arcade skating action. The pleasure
and
is...
like this, like back in the day, right? That was like the only way, one of the only ways to see like skate videos. You're trying to like learn new skate tricks. There was no internet really, and you would go and you'd play Tony Hawk and you'd watch the skate videos and you'd like study them. You know what I mean? Damn. Good old days.
Is to play Barks Lemmy Kilmister in the iconic speed metal masterpiece Ace of Spades, which was the high-energy opener for the original THPS 3 more than 2 decades ago, and returns to do the same job in THPS 3 and 4. 5 years ago, developer Vicarious Visions achieved the improbable with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2.
Yep.
Despite the stench of Robomoto's disastrous Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5 still lingering in the air like a swampy pair of SB dunks, Vicarious Visions produced one of the most pitch-perfect and essential remakes of the modern era. One that would go on to record the highest first month of sales for any game in the long-running Tony Hawk series. For its valiant efforts, Vicarious Visions was promptly shut down. And Hawk himself confirmed plans to produce Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 were subsequently kick-flipped to the curb. Fortunately, this decision was reversed and the project landed at Iron Galaxy. Despite having a different developer at the helm, THPS 3 and 4 remains mostly in sync with the look and structure.
I remember my first deck was a blind deck because I liked aliens. Fuck yeah, dude. You guys remember going through I don't remember what the magazine was called. You flip through the magazine for like skate parks. I remember BMX was Dan's comp. I was more into BMX than skateboarding, but hell yeah.
THPS 1 and 2. That is, the graphics are similarly crisp and colourful, and the performance is robust and reliable. The skate roster is a mix of returning pros from the original games, the new additions from THPS 1 and 2, and some fresh faces debuting in the series. Yes, Bam Margera is here too. He may be absent from the intro sizzle, but you'll be able to find him in the unlockable secrets.
Hell yeah, old Bam.
Both games in the package are again represented as 2 separate strings of levels, but beyond that, everything is unified. Moves and tricks are common across both games, including things like, say, spine transfers, which were only originally introduced in THPS 4. On top of that, the stat points you collect playing one game will improve your skater in the other, and any currency you gather goes to one central kitty to spend on kit for your custom skater. Or secret skaters, fancy effects, or special visual filters. Basically, if you've played THPS 1 and 2, you'll know what to expect. But even if you haven't, I anticipate you'll catch on quickly to the neat and tidy 2-for-1 philosophy at work.
Red Bull gives you wings.
Tony Hawk sound. Okay, we'll keep it in.
The magic of THPS 3 and 4 lives in its levels, and despite a couple of apparent absences, the marvelously remade maps are the stars of the show. As was the case with THPS 1 and 2, it's just so charming to be carving and comboing my way through such familiar geometry, only with a slick and modern facelift. From feeling the heat of the molten metal in Foundry,
I remember that level.
to ascending the levels of Alcatraz, unlocking and arriving in each returning map has been a huge highlight. Airport is still
Hell
an
yeah.
impeccable string of skate lines. Cruise ship is still a wonderfully Moorish challenge to score crazy combos without cannonballing into the Caribbean.
Wee.
It's great stuff. Kona still suffers from parts of its real-world inspired layout being a bit of a plain space for the zany arcade skating of a Tony Hawk's game. And London's shift to night seems to make it a little more boring to look at, but there aren't really any complete duds here aside from THPS4's Zoo, which has been turned
That what it
into a
looked like
tournament
back in the
level.
day?
The zoo is now abandoned,
Ooh.
so it's now
Wasn't too bad.
lifeless and
Hey,
lonely.
Chad Muska?
And the night setting is once again dull on the eyes.
I mean, it's not that bad.
While there's no sign of THPS4's Chicago or Carnival maps, there are 3 brand new ones Iron Galaxy has added to the THPS4 campaign. I'm not sure how I feel about it
Oh, this is
in
the pinball.
purist terms, although Water Park and Pinball are
Never soft
both
eye, hell
seriously
yeah.
excellent levels. An abandoned water park full of empty pools and crusty old water slides is such a perfect environment for a pro skater game, it's almost hard to believe it didn't already exist. And pinball is seriously eye-catching. From the chrome sheen of the shiny metal ball to the gigantic Tony Hawk looming over the machine itself. Level goals are mostly drawn from the original games. Iron Galaxy hasn't arbitrarily moved the hidden tapes somewhere else, but there are a few new or amended ones throughout. These generally work. For instance, the incredibly easy Trash the Museum on Cruise Ship has been replaced with a far more satisfyingly complex trick gauntlet you need to complete in order to produce the same slapstick result.
That could have put someone's eye out.
But there are a couple of misses.
Jesus.
Switching out London's Stompy the Elephant for a weird bloke in his undies is an odd pivot. Most of the liberties have been taken in THPS4's levels, where there's been some significant pruning. Essentially, THPS4's levels have all been streamlined to function under the classic 2-minute timer, so this means you won't be freely skating around speaking with fellow pro skaters and receiving verbal goals from them as you encounter each one. Those conversations are gone, and so too are lots of goals. I will note that some that I thought
Damn.
were missing appeared as one of the 5 extra pro goals that become available after getting every initial goal in all parks. We even get combo goals for THPS 3 levels that never previously had them, which is cool. But there's give and take. Either way, the THPS 4 campaign generally only feels like a remake
AMG
in
Black
brief
series?
bursts. Most of the time, it's really a reimagining. You can change the timer to be up to 60 minutes as a new gameplay mod, joining the list of cheats returning from THPS 1 and 2, but while it reduces friction, it doesn't really make it any more like classic THPS 4. On the topic of goals, however, elsewhere there's been some well-considered evolution to the park editor, which now features a create a goal function. This is a huge plus. Now user levels don't have to exclusively be places for you to just cruise around until you get bored and decide to move on.
Spent a lot of time
They
in
can
these.
be a whole new pillar of your THPS 3 and 4 playtime, tackling new challenges and collecting skate letters, combo lines, and hitting smashables in fresh maps every time you boot up. I think this has massive promise.
Not the same.
While I'm certain the reimagining of THPS 4's campaign mode will be a bona fide bugbear for some purists, personally, I'm far more disappointed in the total about-face on display when it comes to THPS 3 and 4's soundtrack. It's actually a genuinely baffling situation. The importance of soundtracks to the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater series is a well-established fact. They've achieved legendary status in the business, and multiple oral histories have charted the stories behind their creation over the years. In 2020, the philosophy was abundantly clear when it came to THPS 1 and 2. The soundtracks were a critical part of the equation, and it was a central priority. 22 out of the 25 songs that made up the original soundtracks to those first 2 games were resecured for the remake, and only 3 could not be licensed again at that time. With 22 returning songs and 37 fresh ones, 59 songs in total, the soundtrack to THPS 1 and 2 is more or less spot on. Unfortunately, THPS 3 and 4 is a different story altogether. Whether it's a coincidence or otherwise, THPS 3 and 4 has also arrived with 59 songs in total, but the balance is all wrong.
It fits, Skater.
Yes, it's certainly true that both THPS 3 and THPS 4 had significantly larger soundtracks than the original pair of games. 20 for THPS 3 and 35 for THPS 4. And yes, hypothetically resecuring every single song probably wouldn't have left much scope to augment the soundtrack with new music released since the heyday of the original Pro Skater games. Therefore, I would have been content to concede that a fair compromise would have been half and half, or at least a similar mix to THPS 1 and 2. Say, 20 or so classic songs and the remainder new.
I guess that's
We
fair.
didn't get close to
fair.
that. Bafflingly, we got just 6 out of 20 from THPS 3 and a mere 4 out of 35 from
really?
THPS 4.
Jesus.
That's 10 total, less than 20% of the original songs, and less than half the number of returning songs THPS 1 and 2 has. In actual fact, there are bands that weren't even asked, and are as surprised as their fans to be absent from the THPS 3 and 4 soundtrack.
Not my banners!
Apologists may badger me about using Spotify instead, but despite the presence of Body Jar, it's simply not the same as having the music baked into the game where it belongs.
Yeah, if you're gonna do like a remake,
That is, I
It's-
count myself
you
lucky
gotta.
that Body Jar's Not the Same made the cut. Depending on the day of the week you ask me, it's
Like on 1 and
near
2,
enough my
Guerrilla
favourite song
Radio,
of all time.
Rage
But my
Against,
fellow old fans may not be
in that
as
first
fortunate.
hanger level. Come
After
on.
all, even the title
the
track for
music makes it.
THPS 4 was brushed aside. Simply put, this is a fumble for any remake, but it's a particularly disappointing one for a
Yeah,
pair of
bad
games
score
in
'cause
which
of
the
this.
music is a key pillar of what makes them special and memorable.
You broke the
Don't get
game.
me wrong, there are some genuinely great new tracks on THPS 3 and 4 that have instantly worked their way from the game to my daily playlists. Dog Ears by Urethane, Hollywood Sucks by Kenny Hoopla, Boys in the Better Land by Fontaine's DC, Roller by the St. Cecilia, and Better Off by Common Perry are all total bangers, and I wasn't previously familiar with a single one of them. Rescuing Lupe Fiasco's skateboarding anthem Kick Push from being forever marooned in 2006's Tony Hawk's Downhill Jam was also a commendable decision. However, I just cannot ignore the casual indifference shown to the original soundtracks.
Fire the game!
There we go.
Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 is a largely successful rejuvenation of the acclaimed 2001 and 2002 originals, and another very welcome time capsule of everything great about the golden age of early 2000s gaming, before microtransactions and battle passes botched everything right
Yeah.
up. Like 2020's 1 and 2 before it, THPS 3 and 4
Sketch.
proves again the series' over-the-top skateboarding formula is totally timeless and remains suitable for all skill levels. Simple at first blush, but extraordinarily sophisticated beneath the surface for those with the minerals or the muscle memory to push their combos to colossal levels. However, syncing THPS 4 with the classic 2-minute timer of the initial trilogy is probably going to be a sore point with fans who strongly regard the series' 4th installment as their favourite, and discarding a whopping 80% of the original THPS 3 and THPS 4 soundtracks is a startlingly naive choice to make about such a famously
Does it have all
crucial
the skate
component
videos though?
of those
Whoa, they give it an
games.
8.
No TNT?
Holy.
Watch me explode. For more recent
there's no way
reviews,
they
check
gave
out
it
our
an
verdicts
8.
on FBC Firebreak and
Wow. I'm actually surprised. Damn. All right. Well, I was thinking they were going to give it a 6 or a 7. All right, boys. Are you playing it Friday? Let me know. I mean, this is my childhood, you know? 1 and 2 was more my childhood, but I still played 3 and 4, of course. Played it well. Hell yeah. Let me know, boys. You know the drill. Subscribe, come back. Check out our PoE. We're doing Path of Exile, Volcanic Fissure of Snaking. See you on the next one.